Welcome to Doing It My Way by Beata Matras, a podcast about project and product management, communication, brand, and IT. All these topics will definitely improve and have a positive impact on your career. So join me today, subscribe, and expect a new episode every week. Thank you. Welcome to Doing It My Way by Beata Matras. Today I have a special guest, Harry Silvester, the head of Product and Design Recruitment at Discovered MENA, which has been voted the region's best new talent provider. With over 6 years of experience in the UK and Europe, Harry specializes in placing design teams and digital leaders throughout some of the world's most impactful agencies and client-side brands. In this episode, we'll explore why Harry chose Dubai, discuss the job market dynamics, and delve into recruitment tips and strategies. Welcome to the show, Harry. It's a pleasure to talk with you and have you here with me.
Thank you very much, Beata. That was quite an introduction, so thank you very much. I enjoyed that.
Me too. Yeah, I enjoyed your introduction very much. I enjoy being here with you. So maybe could you start by giving our listeners the overview of your background and your journey in the MENA market and in the professional world?
Absolutely. So, sure, as you mentioned, I work at Discovered MENA, and we're one of the leading digital and tech-focused recruitment companies in Dubai. I joined Discovered 3 years ago. I relocated from the UK, just south of Birmingham is where I'm from, if you're familiar with the Peaky Blinders.
I am. I watched like one episode maybe.
I should have bought a hat.
Fun. I just remember this guy who is making this Eastern European vibe faces that I'm doing sometimes.
Tommy Shelby. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So that's my hometown, and prior to moving to Dubai, I was working in a boutique recruitment agency that was focused mainly on digital agencies, marketing agencies, and creative agencies, where I really found my sweet spot in recruitment when I hired on behalf of these agencies looking for design talent, creative talent. So I was working on behalf of a lot of businesses, hiring across motion graphics designers, creative directors, art workers, as well as graphic design and UX UI design. And that was where I was first introduced to product design and UX. And I had great success with hiring into those types of roles and teams, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed working with creatives, with designers, and I decided there that that was what I wanted my specialism and sort of where I wanted my career to go as far as an area of expertise is concerned. So coming out of COVID, I was locked in, as we all were, for a large period of 2020. 2020 was it?
2020, yeah, it was 2020.
So I decided that I wanted to get out of the UK. I wanted to go internationally, and actually my plan A was Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a bit different to Dubai. But because their borders were shut pretty strictly and had no signs of opening anytime soon, I decided to explore plan B. And I was not even eyeing up Dubai as a potential location, but I had a recruiter that reached out to me. So first of all, can you believe that recruiters also get found by recruiters? There is an industry called rec to rec.
Wow.
Which places recruiters into recruitment agencies. Crazy, right?
Yeah, that is crazy.
So I was approached by a recruiter that was helping Discovered in the UAE build out their team. And they were looking for someone that was a design-led recruiter. So I explored a conversation with that recruiter, and three and a half weeks later, I was on a flight out to Dubai with my offer letter and visa ready to be processed. So it happened all very fast. In those 3.5 weeks, I did a lot of research into what life in Dubai is like. I'd never visited before. I didn't have any friends out here at the time. So it was all a blank canvas to me. But I kind of liked that because it meant that I had no kind of pre-existing perceptions or expectations for what Dubai would hold for me. So Discovered, I joined, and 3 years later, here we are today. I've had 3 promotions since joining, which I think also speaks volumes about the market that we've seen in the UAE over the past 3 years. If a recruiter's doing well, it typically means that the job market's pretty buoyant from a hiring perspective. And throughout the last 3 years, I've been focusing on building out design teams predominantly. And over the last year, moving more so into sort of leadership in terms of placing design leaders and product leaders, as well as actually now managing a team of recruiters at Discovered. So that's the reason why I'm here. That's how I sort of came to the UAE, and I guess I haven't really looked back since.
Wow, because actually my next question was supposed to be like, what pushed you to move to Dubai and focus on the MENA market? But you already like explained it in details, so it seems like it was meant to be. Yeah, something brought you here.
Yeah, perhaps it was. Like I said, it was never really in my plan. It was never really in my roadmap. But here we are, and it's been a really, really good 3 years. It's been really successful. I've learned a lot. Having kind of that POV, bird's eye view of businesses in this region. I'm in quite a fortunate position as a recruiter because I get to work with so many different businesses. So what that means is you get access to how certain businesses like to hire or what type of talent certain businesses like to look for. But also I see all of the challenges that certain businesses face, all of the faults that they make in their hiring processes. And that's just on the client side. There's a whole other side to recruitment, which is the candidate side. So I also see all of the faults, all of the challenges, all of the good things that candidates or job seekers do during their job searches as well. So it's quite unique to have that perspective, like I say, that zoomed out or bird's eye view of the market from both client and candidate side.
Yeah, I remember actually your speech at the Product Tank in May where you covered that. But before we move to this kind of specific questions about the market and the tips for people looking for the job here, you're here 3 years already, yeah? You've been here in Dubai for over 3 years now. So how has the job market in the MENA region evolved since you came here?
Great question. I think it's definitely evolved in 3 years, which isn't a huge amount of time. When I first came out here, it was a learning curve for me, first of all, stepping into international recruitment rather than hiring for Birmingham-based businesses and Manchester-based companies. So that kind of shift into global recruitment was definitely a new learning curve for me, but I picked it up pretty quickly. And I think over the past 3 years, what I've noticed is that when I first came to the region, I didn't feel like clients were that picky about what they were hiring for. I felt like hiring managers knew what they wanted and they were happy to be a little bit playful in terms of the brief that they gave to me and hiring the person that perhaps I provided for them or I introduced to them. So if someone was ticking 70% of a brief or 70% of a job description, that was kind of like a thumbs up from most clients when I was working with them sort of almost 3 years ago now. Change that to now, and I find that clients are looking for at least 90% of their brief to be ticked, and ticked with, a big, bold pen. I think that the region has become very competitive. There are a lot more people that are here now looking for work, as well as people that are still looking to move out here globally. And as a result of that, I find that hiring managers are very, very specific about their briefs, very specific about the people that they hire. And they're wanting to play the field a little bit more than perhaps take a risk on a hire that they're not too sure about.
Oh, wow. That's surprising to me because usually, when you see the job offer, everyone are pushing you like, if you're like 50% of what the job advert is like stating, apply for it. You're going to be a great candidate. And you just said something completely different.
So I'd never discourage someone from applying to a job that they didn't tick all of the boxes on. But what I'm saying is that hiring managers now are tending to reject a lot of candidates that perhaps previously, when I first moved out here, they would have maybe taken a chance on. So I think there's a few factors and reasons behind that. And I think the biggest reason is just generally how competitive this market now is to find work and how many people are already here in jobs with regional experience that are also applying for work. So those are the sort of key factors as to, I think, why hiring managers are becoming a lot more finicky about their hires.
Okay, so can you share some insights into the job market in the MENA region? Which industries are hiring the most? What are the current trends in product management?
Yeah, certainly. So as a recruiter, first of all, I don't specialize in any industry as such. I hire based on skill sets. So my area of expertise is product and UX design. So what that means is I work across all industries. So we work with businesses from pre-seed startups right through to big corporates, banks, for example. I wouldn't suggest right now that there's one particular industry that is hiring the most or that's aggressively scaling, perhaps. But in terms of opportunities, there are definitely more opportunities in certain sectors than others. So, for example, if we take banking and financial services and also include fintech within that. I think those are the industries where you find perhaps the most or the majority of opportunities arising right now in the market, partly due to headcount, the fact that there are more product managers working in a bank than there are perhaps in a medical or an insurance-based company. But also I think that that's where we've seen most transformation from a tech perspective, is across all these financial services industries. And the UAE, as we know, is certainly further behind other regions as far as transformations are concerned. So when banks perhaps tried to transform in the UK 10 years ago, banks in the UAE are still on that journey themselves here, which means that there is a lot of investment happening within tech teams and particularly within product teams out here. So I'd say that financial services is certainly an area of growth right now, and certainly a trend where we see more opportunities arise. Having said that, the startup ecosystem in the UAE is thriving, and it has been for quite some years now. There's a lot of investment that's being pulled into the region from outside investors, but also local investors as well. And I will plug one of my clients, actually, Magnet, who create really, really cool bespoke and specialist reports based on the MENA VC ecosystem, where they'll produce reports based on what, the sort of the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, how much money is being invested into the startup ecosystem there. So really, really cool platform for anyone that's interested in that space to look into. But overall, I'd say that it's been pretty fruitful across the market, and, outside of banking, outside of the startup ecosystem, there are still plenty of other opportunities in product too.
Okay, so to summarize, it's like finance, banking, and startup ecosystem. So, people know where they should put their focus into. If we're talking about the job seekers and hiring market, are there any unique challenges or opportunities in the Dubai job market comparing to other regions?
From a hiring perspective or from a looking for a job perspective?
From a hiring perspective.
Okay, so from a hiring manager or a business perspective, I think the sheer diversity of applications that hiring managers receive in this region is a lot wider than other regions. So given the expat population in Dubai, we here are familiar with, the landscape in terms of the different types of cultures that we have here and the different types of personalities that come over from all over the world. So what that means, obviously, is a hiring manager might have more diverse applications to filter through or to review versus someone in the UK that predominantly looking at UK-based people or UK citizens, for example. So I think it's the diversity from one angle. I think maturity as well. So hiring managers that are looking for people that are based in the region already, rather than relocating anyone, will have to assess what businesses PMs may have worked at before they're applying for this job, and understanding, okay, if I've received an application from a product manager that's working in a startup, how mature is their experience? What can you tell from just looking at names on a CV and brands from a CV without having to speak to that person about how solid and how strong their product experience and exposure is going to be? And I think, the UAE is a very, very fast-paced region, right? So from a candidate's perspective, often, if you pass one interview or if you get through the doors for a first interview, it can happen really quick getting that offer. So that's something to also be aware of if you are also applying for jobs and seeking opportunities here. Faster here than where it is in other regions.
But you also mentioned something about, the region is going through a significant transformation, for example, finance. And this is, for example, what happened 10 years ago in UK. Mm-hmm. So even if the candidates are here and they have a solid experience here, they might miss some kind of piece that external candidates could bring.
Yeah, exactly. And if you were a bank, right, and you wanted to hire a PM right now, and you're going through a huge transformation that you're investing tons and tons of cash into, would you rather hire someone that's based in the UAE with regional experience, but they've never worked for a business that's gone through that size of transformation? Or would you rather relocate someone from UK where they may have worked at HSBC through a transformation earlier on in their career? That is the kind of question that a lot of hiring managers are posed with in this region, is, do I want to bring in someone outside that's had this experience in a previous role? Or do I take my chance with someone perhaps that's got maybe different ideas, fresh ideas, but they've got regional experience and they understand how users or customers work in this region. And I think that's the catch-22 that a lot of hiring managers are faced with in this region.
Okay, that's interesting. It's also like the kind of opportunity for people looking for a job here and who want to relocate. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like myself, and obviously, yourself too. You're in a situation right now, and you've been trying to knock on a few doors, and you've been quite selective, I think, about your job search in this region. But it'd be interesting to find out and ask you, the same question: what challenges have you faced in your job search here?
Oh, that's a very interesting question.
And don't throw any shade on recruiters, please.
So the first challenge is actually a huge competition. There is like a lot of people with amazing experience with, as you mentioned, like if someone was here like for 2 years, I think he went through a lot of difficult situations. And thanks to that, he's or she is like much more maybe experienced, maybe stronger. But there is other part. The challenge is also like not to actually follow into that imposter syndrome, that if you have the external experience, you're not a good fit, because you're bringing also like a fresh perspective and you're bringing like the best practices from Europe, for example. Yeah. So that's one thing, to not give up and to be resilient. You need to be like really tough and resilient here. So even the job search experience is making you, you'll survive everything. If you survive this, you'll survive everything.
Yeah, it's really difficult, right? And I have a lot of empathy and compassion for people that, don't find that role immediately, or they move to this region on a visit visa and, they expect to land the job during that first 1, 2, 3 months they're here. And they soon realize that it's really difficult and really competitive, and you don't get feedback from hiring managers after you interview, or you don't get CV feedback. So it's a guessing game how you can try and navigate your job search. So I completely understand the frustrations and, what challenges people are faced with in this region in particular. It's not an easy place to look for work.
Yeah, but it also like kind of fosters creativity, I have to say. I mean, I started writing songs being here, about job search and how difficult and challenging sometimes it is. So it fosters creativity. You start like having fresh new ideas. You actually are thinking like, I could start, business just by experiencing that. So
what's the name of your song?
It's like it's a remix of Blank Space of Taylor Swift. Okay. But it's about.
Are you looking for anyone to feature on the song? I might know someone.
I mean, I can sing it for you. You'll see if this is like enough to stand out on this competitive job market. Yeah. I guess not, but it's still fun. I mean,
But no, I love that. And, whilst that's, we're sort of saying this in jest and it's a little bit of a joke, but it's about being innovative in this market when you're looking for a job. And this is something that I say to a lot of people is, what are you trying to do that's different to other people? If there are 1,000 people applying for a product role that's on LinkedIn, for example, did you try and do something where you're going to stand out a little bit from the crowd? Designers have got it ever so slightly easier from the sense that they have a portfolio that they can also showcase as part of their application, and it supports a CV. Product managers don't tend to have portfolios. So what can you do in addition to a CV that can help support you with your application? Could you launch a series of podcasts, for example? No, but what could you do that's innovative, that's a little bit creative, that's gonna
crazy, a little bit crazy.
A little bit crazy. There's nothing wrong with a little bit crazy, or a lot crazy, to be honest with you. So that's something that I'm always trying to push, is how can you be a little bit different, a bit innovative? A lot of people, if you look online, if you look on Google, and if you Googled how to craft a good CV and product, a lot of people would say, make sure you include your metrics, or make sure you try and include results based on campaigns and what the objective was and who was involved. I think now it's also about storytelling. And I think that that's a skill that is not necessarily, doesn't come easily or naturally to a lot of people, but you can learn that. And I think particularly if you get in front of the hiring manager and you do have an interview, then I think the art of storytelling can go a long way.
Oh yeah, that's a very important skill. Storytelling, or like how to sell yourself, how to build your professional brand, that are actually, I think, it connects together.
And if given the opportunity, would you sing your song to a hiring manager?
Of course, I'll do that. I mean, I can do it right now if you want.
I mean, I'm not saying no.
Look, just give me a moment so I find a text because I can't remember everything.
Yeah.
But I have it prepared.
Okay. And I'm not saying that the hiring manager is definitely going to give you the job here. I haven't heard this song yet. So
okay, so
you might get thrown away quicker than other candidates.
Okay. But I'll try. Okay.
Are you going to sing it now?
Yes, of course.
Really?
Why not? We have the camera. I have you.
Okay.
So I'm going to sing it right now.
Wow.
Good. That's going to be interesting. Nice to meet you where you've been. I could show you amazing things. Skills, experience, drive within. Saw your job post and I knew, oh my gosh, it's meant to be. You're the role that's calling me. Work's a game I wanna play today. Finance, IT, product skills, I can do all and handle stress. Pressure's high, but I don't shy. You know I've got what it takes. So hey, let's connect. I'm going to see what comes next. Send my resume your way. I'm prepared to start today. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I mean, that was something.
Do I have a job?
I mean, that's good. It's pretty good. Yeah. In the words of Louis Walsh, who you probably won't know, you look like a pop star, you sing like a pop star, you're a pop star.
I am.
Yeah. But that was pretty cool. Yeah. Wasn't expecting that, and I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. So
yeah, like there is a lot of things you don't know about me. I mean, I'm talking, to audience, but also to you. So
yeah. Okay. Sure.
My singing talent is one of the things that.
So when we say to be creative, be innovative, you're absolutely ticking that box. I mean, like I said to you, I probably wouldn't advise joining an interview and singing the song. They might think that you're a lot crazy. But those are the kind of things that I want to see more of, right? Yeah. It's being a little bit different and just trying to do something that's going to make you stand out from the crowd. So kudos to you. And look, if your career in product doesn't work out, then I'm sure that there's a career in the music industry for you.
Yeah, there is. I hope, if I will not land in product or in Dubai, maybe I'll land in a music show. Who knows? Yeah, already started a podcast, so a part of job is done. So let's move to the next topic maybe let's summarize a little bit what we talked about. So Harry, how does someone go about landing job in Dubai? So we already said that you need to stand out a little bit, you need to be innovative, but what's your advice for the first move?
For someone that's never been to the UAE before or doesn't know it very well,
yes,
I think mapping out your type of business, mapping out aspirational employers sort of list, in the sense that, right, if I'm coming from Canada, for example, what type of organizations am I going to be valuable for? What kind of organizations are going to be interested in speaking with me if they're opening up a product role in their team? And frustratingly, or not so frustratingly for some people, UAE-based businesses are very, very particular about hiring based on domain experience. It's something that, I think should be challenged, and I understand it from a sort of quick win perspective, and having to train someone on an industry as well as perhaps ways of working can be difficult. So it's a fast track way of bringing in someone and getting them up to speed sooner rather than later in terms of domain experience. So with that in mind, what I would say, one of the first activities that I'd recommend to someone that's looking for a job is to understand, okay, if I've worked in a bank in Canada, who are the major players and, who are the major banks in the UAE that I could potentially reach out to or apply? Outside of pure banking, what are the other sort of financial services organizations or consultancies that work with banks or fintech businesses? And I would largely create that list based on domain experience initially. Outside of that, certainly you could include a few wild cards perhaps that aren't in that domain, but you've seen them or someone that might work there, or you might have heard great things about working there that you also want to consider. But I think, first of all, focusing on domain experience will yield a lot more results faster than if you just had that really sort of scattered approach to job seeking. So I think domain experience would be my number one.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's worth noting for sure, domain experience, because we very often think in product, we have transferable skills, so we can work in any domain we want. Yeah. But the truth is, this kind of basis when you're moving the countries and moving the companies it's
Yeah.
it's beneficial.
And let me put that back into an example. So I work with a couple of banks in Dubai, and one of the chief digital officers recently briefed me on some positions and said, whilst I was conducting my brief and sort of really climbing that why tree to understand what he's after, he told me, look, I want someone from financial services. I want someone that's worked for corporate businesses. I want someone that's worked in companies where headcount is 1,000 plus. And whilst I was sort of not challenging it, but trying to understand the reasons why, he shared with me, I don't want people that are coming in here that think they can throw their weight around. I want people that have an understanding of the reason why it's important to build stakeholder relationships, because in banks and in our bank, he said that there's a lot of red tape and not necessarily bureaucracy, but sometimes you have to wait to get your, project approved. And it might be really frustrating if we pull someone out of a startup organization who's all ideas, and they want to get, stuff done. But in a bank, the environment is very different to that. And, having to try and coach your seniors and your other stakeholders along to get decisions made can be quite difficult. So domain experience and sort of size and scale of business experience, I think, is equally important. I'm not saying that there's not been success stories and there's not people that have got jobs in other industries, but if we're focusing on what someone can do to land their first job in Dubai, I think the easiest thing to do is look at domain experience.
Okay, and now let's turn this to a different perspective. What are the common mistakes that job seekers make when they want to move here, and how to overcome them from a recruiter's perspective? I think you can advise something.
Yeah, I think people apply to too many jobs these days, so that's not just speaking about people that are looking to relocate here, but I think the amount of irrelevant applications that I receive in job posts is still really crazy. So understanding and reading thoroughly through a job description to make sure that you're ticking at least 50-60% of the requirements is really important. If you're not, then you're going to be, you're not even going to be an afterthought. You're just going to get sent straight to the rejection pile. So making sure that the applications that you're making are very relevant. Now, there's a pretty cool feature on LinkedIn that's pretty new, actually, where people that are applying for jobs can mark a specific job as their top choice, that recruiters or people that are handling the vacancies will then see on their application. So if you do find a job where domain experience is a box ticked, size and scale of a business is another box ticked, and it's a business that you're really, really interested in, then definitely mark that as sort of one of your top choices. I think you only get a couple of options to mark however many jobs it is.
I think
three.
Yeah.
So making sure that you utilize that as a position that's exceptionally of interest to you. I think playing around with your CV is quite important too, tailoring it to each application. That's something that I would always urge people to tailor to do when they're looking at ops. And I think trying to go through the back door is also something that I'd always try and push and sort of, I suppose, guide candidates to do. And what I mean by going through the back door is not the traditional methods of applying. It's not just hit the apply button, but perhaps before you press apply, why don't you see if you can find out who the head of product is or who the CPO is? Why don't you see if you can find out who the internal recruiter is? Connect with them. Drop them a little note. How you doing? I noticed that you've been at X company for a little while now. I'm considering a move to the UAE, and I wondered whether or not you'd be open to connect to talk to me about, your experience and sort of the journey that you've had into this market. Don't perhaps necessarily go straight in with the I'm looking for a job or I'm struggling to find work, but try and build a connection. Try and build some kind of talking point before you then go in with the kill.
That's very interesting what you just said, because people tend to send a lot of messages like, hello, I'm a job seeker. I want to, I'm looking for a job here and there. And even though I'm getting these kind of messages and I'm not a recruiter, and I'm like, and what can I do?
Yeah, it's really simple, right? And it's a task that I have to do because part of my role is business development, and I have to try and find new businesses to hire on behalf of. So I've got countless Excel spreadsheets where you're mapping out businesses. We call it client mapping. So I'll write down the name of a business that I want to try and approach. I'll find out who the key stakeholders are, the CPO, the head of design, the HR, the internal recruitment. And I'll write down in the fields who those people are. I'll move on to the next company and I'll build out that list slowly. What you can do is once you've got your lists, sort of semi-built, you can then utilize LinkedIn, either purchasing in-mail credits to send a tailored message to them, or just connecting with them and adding a small note with your connection request. And it's a numbers game, right? So the more businesses that you're reaching out to, the likelihood is the more responses that you'll get. And I think if you're ultimately tailoring your messages to all of these people and all of these stakeholders, then you're likely to get some form of response. It might not be the response that you hoped for. It might be that, unfortunately, this role is actually filled now, or, you might get ghosted, you might not get a response at all. But the more messages that you send out, the higher the chances you're going to get a response.
Yeah, but tailored messages.
Client mapping, yeah.
Client mapping, that's an interesting concept.
Or employer mapping.
Yeah, it's almost like having your own CRM system. Like you're selling yourself. Yeah, I said.
Exactly.
You're selling yourself.
Exactly.
So you mentioned that LinkedIn plays like a huge role in hiring process. So recruiters actually use LinkedIn, yeah?
A lot. It's our biggest tool in terms of sourcing for profiles. When you're building out a network as a recruiter, then LinkedIn is your black book of contacts.
So how can candidates effectively use LinkedIn to, have outstanding profile, for example?
I think it speaks for itself. I think having some kind of personal brand always helps. So if you're posting regularly about things that are relevant to your industry, then that's also, that's going to help out. I think trying to build out your network on LinkedIn is really key, and you only have X amount of connection requests per week. I think it's somewhere close to 100. And, trying to build out your network, especially if you're looking to move to this region for the first time, is really important. Understand then, what are these people in the region posting about? Is there a theme? Is there a topic, or is there a trend, that people are posting about in this region? So I think building out your knowledge base through LinkedIn and building out your own personal connections through LinkedIn is really important. And like I said, LinkedIn has various different levels of their platform with premium, recruiter, and sending out in-mails is one way that you can really tailor your approach to, certain people. So I'd recommend looking into that for anyone that's perhaps struggling to find leads here as a job seeker. But LinkedIn's always changing. It's always growing. The algorithm's still very much hush-hush, and people don't necessarily know what works or what doesn't work. So a lot of it is trial and error sometimes. But I think using it as your base for connections is the most important thing.
Yeah. And we moved to the topic of networking, and you already mentioned a little bit about that. For example, like, creating your CRM system or client mapping spreadsheet. So how important is networking in the MENA region?
I think networking is equally as important, especially in this region. And I think the way to think about networking is, imagine if, you went into LinkedIn in the metaverse. Right. So it's all of the people that you might be connected with on LinkedIn, you might find at one event locally here in the region. I, for one, I co-organize Product Tank, which is the biggest product meetup for product professionals in the UAE, but also not just for product people. It's for, sort of designers, tech people, anyone that's interested in product. And there we have, a community of people that are in work, that are not in work. And it's a place and a safe space for people to come gather, share insights, share stories, share challenges, share success stories as well. And, networking, we've seen, and I've had countless amount of times the amount of people that have said to me, thanks so much for hosting this event. If it wasn't for this, then I wouldn't be in my current job right now. So a lot of people that have gone to our Product Tank event have met people, and as a result have gone through interview processes and landed their jobs. So that speaks for itself in the sense that networking can really help your job search. I think we live in a world now which is very, very much connected, right, digitally, but we don't think perhaps sometimes about that personal touch or that human connection. 5 years ago, pre-COVID, most interviews were done in person. Post-COVID, I can count on my hand the amount of times my clients have asked to interview someone in person this year. On one hand, I can count that. In-person interviews just generally aren't really a thing these days, which is a shame. So having events to go to and meet people in person is, you can create influence when you meet someone. You can create, a proper sparkful connection. So having that in the back of your mind when you're potentially considering joining a networking event or heading to a, community event is really, really key. And don't fall into the trap as well of just going to the event hoping that you can find out who's hiring. I use an analogy all the time when talking to job seekers about attending events, and I say, think of it as if you're going to speed dating. So rather than, and it happens all the time, right? I'm a recruiter, I'm at an event, and someone will walk up to me and say, hey, Harry, I'm looking for a job. Can you help me? Or, hey, Harry, I'm struggling to find a work. Can you help me, find a job? And what I said to them regarding the speed dating analogy is, if you went to a speed dating night where you're sat opposite someone for 2 minutes and then 2 minutes later you're sat opposite someone else, would the first thing you say to them be, hey, Beata, will you marry me?
Well, looking at you.
But I would never.
Sorry.
I would never say that, right? Because
of course.
the objective of a speed dating event is you want to get to know someone. You want to tell them about your story. You want to tell them about who you are, right?
Yeah,
It's the same goes for a networking event. If you're a job seeker, don't go straight in for the kill and say, I'm looking for work. I want to marry you. You say, hey, how you doing? Introducing myself. I'm a product manager. I've got 3 years of experience. I'm here tonight because one of the speakers really caught my attention regarding his title of his talk. Tell me, what is it that you do? Let them talk, find mutual grounds. I'm from the UK. I'm from Birmingham, a city, where the Peaky Blinders were founded. Have you ever watched Peaky Blinders on Netflix before? Tell me.
Yeah, that's how.
So, it's building those connections first, building a relationship, trying to spark some kind of conversation. And if that conversation is going really well, there's a lot of mutual grounds, then start to ask and probe a little bit about your situation. So, I am here, I'm hoping to find a new opportunity in the UAE. I'm struggling with a few bits, trying to get in the door or get my foot in the door with a few businesses. I've had a couple of interviews, but they've not been, I've not aced them as such. Have you faced any challenges with your job search? Trying to really have that kind of consultative approach. And again, going back to what I say about storytelling, I think it's really important than just trying to go in for the kill all the time and saying, I'm looking for work and shoving your CV down my throat. It's never going to work. So, networking, approach it as though it's LinkedIn in the real world, but don't be transactional with what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, I don't remember who, but actually someone told me, like, if LinkedIn would be a city, it would be Dubai. And I think we can agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can definitely,
Yeah. So if you're looking for a job in Dubai, you need to remember that it's almost like posting on LinkedIn or like building your personal brand on LinkedIn. With you're not sharing openly, for example, like having this badge open to work very often. I think it's not.
I think it does more harm than good these days.
Yeah.
When it was first accessible and you could add it to your profile, I think that there was some value in it.
Yeah.
But now I don't think it has that same effect.
Yeah, it doesn't. The same as asking on the first date, "Will you marry me?"
Right.
Some people would agree, but in your experience, what are also like the top 3 things that candidates should focus to nail a job interview?
I always advise candidates to prepare questions to ask the hiring manager. And I don't think that's something that people do often enough. Interview should be seen as a 2-way street. You should ultimately try and interview the hiring manager as much as they're interviewing you, within reason. I think always preparing some questions. And that could be business related, it could be role related, it could be culturally related in terms of fit. And there's also always one question that a mentor of mine in recruitment told me to always ask candidates, which is, are there any concerns about how you think I could perform in this role? And the reason why that question is so powerful is because if you do, as a hiring manager, have a concern and you share that concern with the candidate during the interview, it gives you an opportunity to alleviate that concern. It gives you an opportunity to say, well, if you do have a concern about the fact that I've only stayed in my previous roles for 12 months at a time, I can alleviate that concern by giving some context. Well, actually, the last role that I was in, we had funding pulled and I was made redundant. The role before that, I took maternity leave because I was having a family. The role before that, unfortunately, there was, some regulations that, were put in place, and it meant that we couldn't launch our product as fast as what we wanted to. So my role was, less impactful, and I decided to move on. By asking that original question, you're giving yourself the chance to alleviate the concern that the hiring manager's got. So then when he goes off the call, he's not got that concern anymore. So I think asking that question is really powerful. And it's, do you have any concerns over my candidacy or my ability to perform in this role? I think in terms of other interview preparation pieces of advice, I think for PM specifically, talking about the whole 0 to 1 type of experience and understanding what your objective was, what sort of business objectives were ahead of this, product that you worked on, and then also, storytelling them through the process and then landing on the metrics and the outcomes using data and tangible data, I think is really, really important. It's what a lot of product leaders want to hear. So I think tangible results and data is really key. And I think putting a big smile on your face during the interview is something that's not spoken about enough either. Really trying to inject personality. It's harder to do these days on video interviews. And like I said before, face-to-face interviews aren't really a thing anymore. So trying to make sure that you're bubbly, smiley, and trying to inject some personality into the interview is really key as well.
Yeah. One of the things that I started doing when recording podcasts, because it's like difficult, to be in front of the camera for like 1 hour or more. And the moment when, I'm focusing on people, so then I have like this a deep thinker face, which is not always, a good thing, which is not always like good looking, because I look very serious, like I want to kill someone. But I started to think about people I cherish, yeah, and that helps, when you like someone, when you love someone, there is like always this, smile coming to your face. So yeah, that helps.
Yeah,
and that also reduces the tension, because you're not alone, you're with someone. So Harry, to summarize a little bit. For someone looking to break into product roles in Dubai, how do you suggest they prepare themselves for the local market?
I think from what we've spoken about already, utilizing tools like LinkedIn to build your knowledge base of this region. I think mapping out clients, like we've spoken about, understanding what sort of target businesses you can approach ahead of your job search, ensuring that your candidacy is being uplifted by a quality CV, reaching out to recruiters. That's not something that I've mentioned yet, but there are lots of Harrys in the UAE that are, working on behalf of different businesses. Utilizing recruiters' knowledge is going to be really powerful for that, and not all recruiters are going to have the time or capacity to get back to you. But again, it's a numbers game. If you reach out to one recruiter, you might not get a response. If you reach out to 10 recruiters, you might get 3 people come back to you with valuable insights. So leaning on recruiters is really important. And that's from that zoomed out perspective as well, right? So it's not just reaching out to someone that works for a specific business, but recruiters have that kind of overarching view. So they can definitely, provide solid insights. And then, my last piece of advice is just really being innovative, being creative, trying to find a new way of knocking down a door, being persistent as well.
Yeah, being persistent and resilient. That helps a lot. You need to be tough. Extra question actually, because I didn't know if we will have time, but we have time. So what about AI? How does it impact the recruitment and product management?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. And as you know, you were obviously present during our Product Tank event on Thursday last week. Safwan, who is one of the co-organizers and he's head of product at Bayzat here in Dubai, he spoke about, the title of his talk was brilliant. It was, do we still need product managers? And a large part of his talk was focused around AI. Now, I'm not a product manager. Disclaimer, I'm not a product manager. I recruit for them, but my knowledge of pure product is pretty limited. But I think AI, we're all aware that it's coming, that it's here, that it's not going to go away, and that the people that adopt it first, or the people that are adopting it sensibly and have use cases for it, are going to thrive. It's, I think, predominantly right now being utilized most in sort of task force, in terms of trying to utilize it for efficiency with certain tasks, utilizing it for sort of data coverage and data capturing. And I think particularly in sort of discovery phases and research phases with early stage products, AI can really help out with that, to map out, a lot of data and research, as well as looking at, how it can implement from, sort of more of a wider business perspective and how products can tap into it. I don't have the answers. I'm still learning about it right now. And even from my sort of zoomed out bird's eye view approach, I ask this question a lot to certain businesses and they don't really have, full answers for me yet. So I think it's still a work in progress, but I think just upskilling your knowledge and your understanding of the importance and the power of AI is really key right now. So any kind of resources, talks, events where there's someone talking about how AI is going to impact product, I'd certainly say is something worth attending.
Okay. So, as you mentioned, Safwan mentioned the key trends in product management that will, impact us, that are already impacting us. But looking ahead, are there any specific trends or innovations do you believe will significantly impact recruitment and product management in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe?
I don't think recruiters are going to be made redundant. I think that there's always going to be a need for recruiters, and I'd like to think that. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but I think AI will certainly, and it already is certainly sort of taking place from a recruiter's perspective too, with sourcing profiles, especially for roles that are a little bit more about the pure technical expertise that's required. I think more so for perhaps engineers, where if we take a brief on an engineer role with one of our clients, often it's we need 5 years of experience with this technology, with this language, with this language, with this language, and it's very much black and white. I think AI can ultimately take all of those requirements, put it into a beast like LinkedIn or a big database somewhere, and then generate profiles immediately for you, rather than having to flick through every single profile and shortlist them. So I think from a shortlisting perspective, I think AI is already helping. But that's more so, I suggest, like I said, for engineering and development roles. I think for product people, I think I don't think AI is going to be able to pick the best candidate from a shortlist. I think there's still going to need to be interview and human input and human interaction before you understand if you want to hire that person. So I still think that, again, for AI, a lot of it's around automation and sort of time saving with processes.
That's actually interesting, because you can never be sure if AI will replace you or not, if you're safe or not. So better be familiar with that and prepare yourself for the worst.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And look, if we flip the script a little bit, obviously, like you said, you've had a few challenges since you've been in this market looking for work. You're obviously very outgoing, from the sense that you've launched this podcast, and I watched a couple of your episodes and they're awesome, and I love it because it's doing that innovative thing. It's getting yourself outside of your comfort zone and trying something new. Brilliant, and kudos to you. What are some of the challenges that you've faced since you've been applying for jobs or interviewing for jobs out here? And let's talk about some of the things that are specific to you.
Oh, specific to me. As I mentioned, for me specifically, I needed to tell to myself that I belong here, that I can be here, that I can that I'm doing my job well, and that I fit here. That I can be, product manager, working.
Just having confidence
Dubai.
first, right?
Yes, that's a huge mindset.
Yeah,
plays a huge role.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And talking about some of the actual challenges that you've potentially faced already, like what's been the hardest thing for you to kickstart your job search? Have you been applying for many jobs, or have you been quite selective about the companies that you've applied to?
Actually, I've been doing some research in the companies that I want to work in, and also doing this kind of whole SWOT analysis. I was assessing my strengths, my weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats. Then I was doing the research of the companies in the market, found that there is a kind of split, for example, between the global companies, regional companies, local companies. I know that I want to target certain companies. And generally, one of the challenges was also understanding that network here matters a lot, and you need to ask people for help, and you need to know how to present yourself, how to interact with them, and how to flip the conversation to the professional setting, and also your experience with and balance that with giving them attention, because I'm usually a very attentive person. I do not speak a lot. I usually listen to what you're saying. That's something I've learned. But if you want to build a network and you also want to be remembered by someone, you need to have that kind of 30 to 70% of, 70% this person, for example, is speaking, that you want to learn about. 30% you can show your personality, show your professionalism. That's something that I've learned here.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I love your approach to it, because you've actually really thought about a strategy behind your job search for this region. A lot of people are very gung ho, and what I mean by that is They'll decide, they wake up one day and they want to move to the UAE, and they'll just get online and start applying for jobs, maybe with an old CV. Maybe they've not even looked at their CV. It's been very generic. And that's the frustration that a lot of hiring managers and recruiters face, is when they're going through all of these applications and they're seeing these people that have clearly not taken the time to read the job description because they're just not relevant. Whereas yourself, you've spent a lot of time to understand what your strategy is coming into this job search, and you've started to do a little bit of this client mapping or employer mapping. And you've broken it down, rather than perhaps industry related, you've broken it down sort of global scale, or, size and scale of businesses, like you say, global, regional, and UAE, sort of founded. So I think that that's a great way for you to also break up, your sort of aspirational businesses.
Yeah, and there is also like a lot of, if it's about networking, I see it as a strategic relationship building. I'm learning a lot by having a conversation with people. It's not like I'm coming to them and saying like, look, I'm looking for a job, and then wait for this person to say like, look, Beata, amazing, we want you here. No, I'm actually approaching that in a way like what we can learn from each other. If I can help this person, it's not going to be like transactional in a sense of I want this, so I'm going to do like everything to present myself in the best light. I'm thinking more about what can I give this person, what is her or his problem, how can I solve it? And then I'm trying to solve the problems. I solved a lot of problems for people already, and I'm still trying. I mean, I'm not giving up because I'm also learning from that experience.
Yeah, no, good for you. And I think also one thing that we've not spoken about yet, which is a real frustration of mine, is the lack of entry or junior or intern opportunities in this region for anyone working in tech, really. We rarely see junior roles advertised or teams that are hiring from the bottom up. Often we see a lot of mid-weight roles as the first position that's advertised in businesses out here. And I think that that's a real frustration, because there's no ground up mentality. There's no like, we'll build from the bottom, where, we'll hire junior people, or we'll invest in a certain type of internship program that's going to bring people into the business and grow their skill set. So that's something as well that frustrates me about this market.
But there is like a kind of sense behind it. If you're in a fast-paced environment, and here you want to build something quickly, so you need people to have a certain level, like certain skills
of experience.
Yes,
yeah, I get it.
And have that confidence also. Yeah,
I understand it, but I think it's a shame that there's also no investment that happens within the ground up. And I think the UAE is home to brilliant schools, really, really strong education. And if you're born here or you grow up here and you go through school here and you get your certifications and your education and you want to stay here for work, there's very, very few opportunities or businesses that will hire you, because employers don't offer that kind of opportunity. Often it's the way you might school here, you might learn your trade, learn your education here, and then you might have to go to another country to build your experience and then come back to the UAE, which seems a little bit backwards in a way.
Yeah.
I get it, I understand it, but it's a shame.
That's interesting. Or we could cover that in future episodes.
Certainly.
That's another angle we could cover, the recruitment. But right now we need to wrap up. So reflecting on our conversation, what would be one crucial piece of advice for someone seeking for a job in Dubai? What would you advise to this person? How to land the job here?
Rewrite Taylor Swift's Blank Space. No, if I was to offer one piece of advice to someone that's wanting to relocate here for work, it's to try and be innovative, do something very different. Think about an idea that you've got that you can try and put into practice that's going to make you stand out in front of other people, other applications. And like I said, you can do that in many ways. You can rewrite a Taylor Swift song and send it to someone. You can launch a podcast series and showcase it on your personal brand. You can create a CV that's interactive, and maybe you can add a link to a URL to a website that showcases your experience and personality in even more depth. You can fly out to the UAE before you land here, before you look for work here, and attend the networking events and build your network in this region. And you can be a little bit more backdoor approach heavy in terms of not just transactionally applying for jobs here, but trying to build a relationship with hiring managers and stakeholders before you then hit that apply button. Okay. So that's more than one piece of advice, but
yeah.
It's hard to give one piece of advice.
It's hard, but I would summarize it as be persistent, resilient, and creative, and just, do crazy things. Even if it seems crazy at first or weird,
go for it.
Go
right?
for it.
Go
Yeah,
for it. And
go for
don't be fazed by rejection. I think that's a big piece of advice too, is you're going to get a lot more rejections than you are, sort of acceptances.
Yeah.
So if you do get 5 out of 5 rejections, don't let that stop you from continuing to push forward.
Yeah. Last question, Harry, for our listeners who want to connect with you, where they can find you online.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Harry Silvester at Discovered MENA. So I suppose that would be the first place to find me. Also, as I've mentioned, I co-organize Product Tank, and I'm always at our Product Tank events. So if I don't get back to anyone on LinkedIn, then the best place to find me is probably at Product Tank, unless you try and find me at a local golf course on a Saturday afternoon. And that would be the best place to find me.
Okay. You know where to find Harry, on the Sunday afternoon? Yeah?
Saturday afternoon. Yeah,
Saturday afternoon, you know where to find him if you want to meet him in person. But of course, encourage you to reach out to on LinkedIn. And thank you, Harry. Thank you for your advices. I think it will be very, very valuable for people who want to break into Dubai market, break into UAE market, or just land a job anywhere in the world. Because, these rules can be applied everywhere.
Certainly. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to join you, Beata. So thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me on another episode of Doing It My Way by Beata Matras. If you enjoyed this episode, please do not forget to subscribe. Remember, this podcast is a dynamic journey and your feedback is very welcomed. Connect with me on social media. I would like to hear your thoughts, questions, and topic suggestions. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes. And until next time, keep doing it your way.